Saddle up, shit kickers. It's time to ride.
All right, welcome everybody to part 2 of basic lighting. Now, this video is going to be anything but basic. We are going to be discussing how to place multiple fields within one another and make them all work correctly. We're also going to discuss how I run my wiring and electrical conduits inside my walls so that you don't really see the lighting or the wiring that runs your lighting or your doors or objects you're powering. Now, as you can see, all the doors are opening and closing nicely. The lights come on. Everything's working in sequence with one another and nothing's overpowering the other. So, I'm excited. I hope you're excited. Let's get this video started.
Okay, let's take a trip down memory lane and recap what we did in video 1, just in case some of my viewing friends didn't see it. It is important that we understand how these fields work. And for any of you that did see it, still have a little patience. We're going to throw in a little twist and put in a third field. That way we kind of understand what's going on before we move on to the main part of the video. Okay, now still once again to show that it doesn't matter how you lay out your electrical items and connect them. It only matters which one gets powered up first. So I hooked up the very end switch first, but we're going to hook this switch up to power and it will become our dominating field. And I'll throw up a couple of lights. And what do you know? We can see. And each electrical conduit, like I said earlier, does about 2 blocks. So that's why I throw up the second one there so you could see it's just out of its range. The second one in that field, I shouldn't have thrown up. I'll have to take it back out here in a second. But now we have created our second dominant field, and the first field has gone passive. Okay, we'll throw up a light in the center, and as you can see, that one's not working, so we'll take it out. It's glitched. We'll throw up another one. And one more 2 blocks away, which you can see it's pretty close to that last third electrical node. And then we'll hook up the final switch. But actually, we are a little too far away. Let's bring this guy up. Okay, now as soon as we hook that up, this became our dominant field. And the other 2 became passive. So now we go ahead and stick lights out in its area or dominating field and turn off the light, and what do you know? They all go off. We'll move over to the second, and because those lights are still there, they go off from that field. It's a passive field, but the lights were already set when it was a dominant field. And back to the very first switch. Like I said a little earlier, it's very important that you understand how this works, why it works this way, so when you're building, you're not having issues with your lighting. Now, let's have a little fun. Okay, here we go. Although I've used this dominant field technique that I've done, this is actually the first time I've done something like this. What I've done is added in 3 alternating switches set at 1 second off, 1 second on. And just went ahead and hooked them up to the conduits just like regular and placed everything in where the dominating field was and then moved off to the next one. And as you can see, any light that requires a field will work from this. And here in a second, we'll use this tactic in the demonstration that I'm going to be showing you guys. So let's go have some fun. What I've done here is I've taken our mock-up wall and placed them out here on these steps. This gives us an aerial view of how the conduits were placed and how the wiring was ran. Now it also serves a second purpose. Once this wall was moved after fields had been set, the fields have changed. Also, one other problem that occurred is generally, like I say, your conduit field is about 2 squares in each direction. And I normally place my conduits about 3 squares or 3 boards away. Well, you can move them up to 4, and the wire's still connected. But if you go much farther past, the wire will break, and now you have no wire connecting to that conduit. So you must move it back where you're in range to rehook the wire back up. So now, in saying that, that's what happened here on the third door. The wire from this conduit completely over, and you can see it's 4 walls, broke. So I had to replace it. Now that is the dominant field because of doing that, regardless if I'm hooked to power or not. And so, as you can see here, it's hooked up to the door. It goes down. Now this is for the third door. And it comes across the bottom and comes into a conduit just 1 wall away from it. And then it goes all the way to the beginning, which is 3 walls. And you can see it comes on down to its power switch there. That's the wire that runs over to it. Oh, excuse me, it was 2 walls. And I'll explain to you a little later in the video how I do this and set these all up. I'm just showing you how they run right now. Okay, now let's put a couple of lights on and let's experience some of the glitches, or how, I shouldn't say glitches, how the fields have changed. And my dominating field that was running the lights before has now become passive because we've moved it. And the lights were removed and put back on. So now the dominating field is door 3, which is the upper one of the conduits. And you can see that the lights are on, but oh, look, there's another problem that has arose. 2 doors are open. But because we know what we have been going over the last video, we know that it is a non-passive field. So to prove this, we're going to turn on door 2. And look, door 2 is now operating the lights, and door 3. So, one of the lights is generating a non-passive field. And I take one off, we come back to check it out again. Yes, the power is on, we'll shut it off, let's check. Sure enough, the doors are closed. So once the power comes on, the non-passive field is generated, and that's why we're having that problem. So it's only obvious it's this last light that's causing the problem. We take that off. Sure enough, door 2 closes because we have taken away the non-passive field, and now everything will work fine, with the exception of the lights. The lights will only work if door 3 is on, because it's on that field. Sure enough, door 2 is open. Now door 1 should be open. And there you go. Because of understanding how fields work, we now have discovered why this isn't working and could fix it. Alright, here what we're going to do is take a quick look at how I run wiring through the walls. We're going to create a dominant field, and I've placed a couple of conduits along the bottoms of these walls, and we're just going to place them up in there. Now, as long as the object you have your electrical conduit connected to is not hindered or can snap, you can pretty much run your wiring through anything. And so we'll move it a little closer so we don't get too far away as we're putting them up. Remember, after about 4 boards, the wire does snap. And I'll shortly discover here that I've got too many walls up. I've got to take one out. Now we can go ahead and place the second one in. And as you can see, it's on the outside. 1 board, 2 boards, 3 boards, and there's the conduit. I don't know why I call them boards. Should be calling them walls. That's what the hell they are, Bones, you dummy. Okay, and then snap the other one in. Normally what I do is run all of my electrical before I connect it to power. That is always the best option. I used to connect the power up and then run my electrical as I went, but oh, the amount of problems I had. And there we go. A nice tidy wall with our wiring inside of it. Today's quick tip. Alright, I know what you're saying to yourself. Bones, the way you run your wires through the walls, man, that's awesome. Works great for 90-degree corners or straight walls. But what about corners? What about circles? I build my shit with circles. Okay, no problem. I can help you out with that too. I've attached a couple of conduits so you can see that you can put multiple ones on or just one, and have them pretty far out on the wall. They may stick out a little bit, but it shouldn't be an issue. And before we put the corner in, this is another way in case you're running your conduits across the top of the wall. You would just connect it there. It'd run straight down the wall. That one hides the best. Okay, let's throw a corner in. These wires will stick out just a little bit, but it shouldn't be much of an issue. A table, a chair, something will cover that right up. Plus, remember, conduits will stick to any part of the wall with the exception of the bottom. Because the bottom goes into things, apparently you cannot attach nothing to it. So don't be afraid to experiment. Put your conduits in different areas. And as long as you can move the wall and something is not blocking it from setting down and it's green, you can put it back down, and it's a great way to run wiring through walls, ceilings, etc. Okay, that's today's quick tip. Okay, now that we've built a wall with a dominant field running our lights, let's pick our game up and build a wall with 2 fields on it. One field will run our lights, and one field will run our door and open and close it. Now, there's a couple of things we're going to kind of learn from these next couple of segments. One is the positioning of the electrical conduits and the effects that they have on each other as you put them over top of one another. And to start off here, we're going to put 2 conduits on the first wall. We're going to put 2 on the second wall. And then on the last 2 walls, we're just going to put 1. Now, we're going to connect the 2 bottom conduits together. That's what's going to open and close our door. Then the 2 top conduits will be connected together, as well as the last 2 walls. That's going to be our field that runs our lighting. Now we'll go ahead and hook it up to the switch, well, one of them. Okay, and then we'll get the walls put in. Normally when I'm building my electrical, I go to where I want it to end, and I start there and I finish where the power or the switch is going to be. You'll learn that sometimes you have to go that way because wires hinder themselves while you're trying to put them in, and you have to put the first walls in first, or the end walls in first, so the wires don't hinder you putting the walls in. Now I'm just spacing these out a little bit here real quick so we don't break the wire. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go 3 walls wide with the first set of conduits. That'll put the conduits on this board on the right hand side, which are directly underneath the conduits on the door. And speaking of, as a dumbass and forgot to hook the conduit up to one another, so as we get that done and get caught back up here, but nope, that's not going to happen. I got to reposition the wall again better. Okay, let's get this bugger hooked up. Okay, important tip. Don't forget to hook up your doors or switches or whatever before you put the walls in. Okay, and as you can see, the conduits are right below. The wire goes straight down to them. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and put these in anyway. It doesn't matter. This one's actually going to be only 2 walls away from the conduits, so it'll have a pretty good filled overlap. But for what we're doing, it won't make any difference. And then, of course, the last wall doesn't matter. It's just to go ahead and show you that you can continue the chain if you feel the need. Now, let's go ahead and go over and let's hook our switches up. Now, this is going to take a second because I got to move the switches around instead of getting rid of the ones that are in the way because we're not using them. I just continue to keep fiddle farting around here and whatever. So we'll have to spend a minute while I get this straightened out, or a second. And we'll move that one a little bit. That's the one that's in the way. Like I said, I should have just got rid of it, but you know, who cares? Okay, let's hook back up to the switch. The switch is on. We're back on track. Let's get the wall up and let's put a few lights up. Alright, and there you go. The lights are working. So the switch that we just hooked up is now our dominating field. So we'll go on over here. We'll check and make sure they're working. Well, actually, I guess let's go ahead and hook up the door switch. It doesn't matter at this point. It doesn't have lights working on it, so it won't make a bit of difference. So let's turn it on, and there you go. The door's working great. Now, let's just take a second and recap how this worked. We took 2 fields and blended them together. The first field actually operates our wall lights. It's our dominant field. But then we hooked up the door. As soon as we did that, the door became our dominant field. But because we've already applied our lights before we hooked the door up, and because there are no lights hooked to the field of the door, everything works great. This is just a great example of how to run multiple fields. Okay, now let's pick our game up even one notch further. Since we know how fields work, let's see if we can put a light on our door that turns on and off as we open and close our door, while we still have wall lights that are operating individually on their own switch. Now, to show you how easy this is, I'm hooking this up exactly the same way as the last build. The 2 bottoms are the door switches, the top are our lights, and connect the last 2 walls. This is the difference. I brought our spacer wall in, and I'm going to move this top conduit over to it. It was the one that was on top of the conduit that hooks to the conduit on the door. Now, you would not have to move that, but I did for this case, so that way we don't have any present or future problems later on if we continue to use this. Now, the next thing that's important is the positioning of the conduits in the wall as you put the walls up. Once again, we'll throw this end one up down there. It doesn't matter. It's just to continue the chain. I did remember this time to hook the door up before I put the wall on. Now I could have moved the conduit up the wall 3/4 of the way, made it closer to the door conduit. It will hide the wire much better. But for this demonstration, I'm showing you it doesn't matter. We can still make this work with the fields overlapping. Now there are two ways this can be done. The first way is a no-brainer. What I've done is put that wall in where the conduits are on the left side. There's now 4 walls in between them fields. So now the fields are in the center. And as they go up, the arc or the circle of the field creates a little V. Now we could just throw a light in there and it would work just great. But like I said, for this demonstration, I'm wanting to show how you can still make this work when you have fields that are overlapping. So I'll move the wall, I'll shrink down the distance. We now have 3 walls in between our fields, and the field is in the center of the door. It creates a slight arch over the door and on the sides where the fields are overlapping. Now let's go ahead and hook our power up. And this time I have everything set up so we don't have to fool with the damn switches. And the switches are now connected, and we'll insert the wall. Now this is where we're going to make a slight change. Normally I would hook the light switches up first, or the light switch. Make that our dominant field. But I'm going to hook the door up first this time. And as you can see, it's working. So let's get a light thrown up there and confirm that this is our dominant field. It is. Okay, and for fun, to show you that the overlapping field doesn't matter, let's throw a second light in. We need to have 2 lights on our door. Okay, let's check and make sure they're working. Okay, it's off, the door's closed. They're on and the door's open. Excellent. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to disconnect the power from that switch. And we're going to hook the power for our lights up. What we've done is we have tricked the game into thinking that this is the dominant field now, when in reality the dominant field is our original one we started with, which is the door. And I'm going to get generous and throw plenty of lights out. Look how close I get to the other light. And as you can see, the other lights are not working. They still think they're on the dominant field. And we'll throw one up on the end just for shits and giggles. And connect up our door switch one more time to power. And what do you know? The door comes open and the lights are working. So let's just check and make sure. Okay, wall lights off, door lights on, doors open, door lights off, door light closed. And door lights open, door lights on, door open, and wall open. This is a great technique in fooling the game to which field is the dominant field.
Alright guys, well that's about it for this video. I'm sorry that I don't have a preview of what the next video is going to be. We're going to be starting on light boxes, running conduits, wiring, and light boxes. So what I thought I'd do, as I was saying my goodbyes, is show you an electrical build I have in an epic settlement build in Starlight Drive-In that runs what I call the pit. It's a fighting arena. And we can enjoy some of the electrical here as we say our goodbyes. Well, if this video was helpful or any of the tips I gave you useful, I sure would like to hear a comment from you. If you guys would, I'd appreciate a like. And if you're interested in seeing the next videos coming out on this series, subscribe would be nice as well. Well, everybody, I appreciate you guys. Everybody have a great afternoon, a great day. And until next time, stay safe. Peace.